I would say that what is typified by black people is this sort of victim mentality that says, oh, is it because I'm black? Oh, you only have a problem with me because I'm black. Oh, they're keeping the black man down, all this kind of stuff. The reason we call them Wigger nationalists is because they have kind of adopted the worst aspects of black identity politics, which is to say, oh, you have a problem with me because I'm white? Oh, they're keeping the white man down. Oh, well, they'll just call us racist. Well, they'll just call us Nazis. And my attitude towards the problem is always, they can't stop us. If you go like I did and tell the truth directly and articulately, and you don't let them suppress you, at the end of the day, they really can't stop you. I think I'm living proof of that. And I encourage all my followers, don't make excuses. Don't go around and say, oh, it's because I'm white. Oh, well, they'll never let you say that. They'll never let you do that. They'll say you're racist. I say, try and stop us. What do you mean let? They're not going to let us. We're going to do whatever we want. And so I tell my followers, get as intelligent as you can, read books, learn languages, learn a musical instrument, go to the gym, get physically fit. I tell people, get into the best college you can. And if you're not interested in going that route and networking, then be an entrepreneur, make as much money as possible, infiltrate politics. But I guess where I would diverge slightly, if we're to get into, because I think we're in total agreement on that, and I'm with you 100%. I just would say I'm sure there's some groypers that are saying something like that. I would call that wignat. This like chest beating. Oh, it's because I'm white. They're keeping the white man down. You know, they are keeping the white man down, but we have to be worthy of our ancestors as white men and say, we don't need permission. We don't need to ask for permission. We're not going to let them get in our way. They're going to do bullshit to us, but we have to find a way to overcome. I guess where I would diverge slightly, because I hear this all the time, and directionally, I suppose I agree. But, you know, when you talk about the birth rates, you're 100% right that the birth rates are a problem. The white people are not having kids. And if the white people don't have kids, it's over. We're going to be replaced. Yep. And I hear people say this to me all the time. They say, you need to have kids. And I plan on doing that. I plan on getting married and having kids at some point. I guess where I would depart, even from my fellow white people who say this, is that there is something structural happening where I don't believe the answer is that we're going to tell ourselves we all need to start having kids. Because how many people are even political? How many people are aware of the white genocide? How many people are going to have kids as a response to this problem? It's a very, very tiny number. And it's not to say that we shouldn't contribute to the solution, but it is to say that we fundamentally must engage in politics. It's sort of like chess. You know, all the pawns could simultaneously wake up one day and say, we need to have more white babies. We need to have kids. I think that's highly unlikely. We need to strike at the king. We need a regime. We need to engage in politics. And I don't just mean like voting. I mean, we need to become resourceful, influential, rich, run media, be entrepreneurs, you know, pay politicians to run for office. And we need to use politics to change society. Because when you look at the strategy of like the Jews as an example, they're 2% of the population, but they have this extraordinary influence. That's because they go for the locus of power. They're in LA, they're in New York City, they're in DC. These are the most powerful cities in the world. They're in San Francisco, they're in El Segundo. They're striking at the locus of power. And from the locus of power proceeds the cultural standards, proceeds these dominant narratives in the education system from academia. And so I'm really a believer, not in as much saying, oh, white people in general need to have more kids. Certainly that's a good thing. But it's more like I want the most brilliant, elite human capital, the smartest, richest, best white people to become as powerful as possible, take over the institutions, and from the institutions promulgate a message of fertility, racial solidarity, national solidarity, and national consciousness. That's kind of where I'm at. And I don't think you'd even disagree, but it's just kind of like going a little step further on that.
No, I agree with you, actually, completely. And culture is the driving force behind all things. You know, I often comment on white people, black people. I'm in a unique position because I am a race mixed individual, which pisses off a large percentage of the internet. But this is how I was born, and that's how it goes. And there's not much I can do about it. But I would argue, besides yourself, there's probably no one else with a platform as large as mine who speaks up for white people ever. And one of the problems with extreme right-wing white people is we have this infinitely divisible, constantly searching for more and more based to the point where no matter how much you do for them or try to help them, you're going to eventually not be based enough for them. And this is seen amongst white people in general. If we removed all the black people from Western civilization today, within 30 years, the Germans would be fighting the Italians again. I mean, that's what happened. Only 30 or 40 years ago, the Irish and English were blowing each other up. And now Ireland and England's both full of asylum seekers from the boats. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. So this infinitely divisible, this constant search for the more and more based version, I actually think in some ways subverts the whole movement. The movement you've launched is so fantastic. The cultural effect you've had is also fantastic. But the biggest threat to the movement is not going to be external. It's going to be internal. And there's a percentage of people, no matter what I say, in defense of you, in defense of white people, in defense of Western civilization, come along and say, because my dad is black, who was a chess genius, by the way, is the only reason I'm even smart, that I'm a piece of shit and I need to be kicked out or I need to die or whatever. And I don't care because truthfully, I think it's hilarious. But when you have these cartoon anon accounts constantly going to a deeper and deeper level of everyone's a Jew, everything is this, everything is that, and they can't even get along with somebody who is clearly on their side in the larger fight, this is how you're going to end up losing the fight in the long run. And I think that's where some of the problem comes from, which again is not even your fault, but that's the problem with that movement on as a whole. And I'm going to say one thing from a personal perspective. I do feel like there is a degree of ungratefulness. Once again, this is not your fault, but there's an ungratefulness amongst people and an ungratefulness amongst the internet. I remind the internet on October 8th, against all legal advice, I told Piers Morgan it was a genocide. I stuck up and was anti-Israel on Piers Morgan on October 8th, before it was cool on the internet, very much like you. Now everybody does it. You did it before it was cool. I did it before I was cool. Anti-Semitism is a crime in Europe. They put me back on house arrest. I was locked in my house for 11 months because of what I said on a podcast. And now they turn up and tweet underneath that I'm a Jew. And I just think if that's how we're going to operate as a movement, we're only ever going to be a laughing stock to our enemies. And I agree with you about the locus of power. You're completely correct. And I think it's a multifaceted attack. But we have to be very careful here, because if I owned a farm and all the sheep worked out that I had a slaughterhouse, and all they did all day was say, that's a slaughterhouse, he's got a slaughterhouse, but they still walked into it, I wouldn't really care. There has to be a point where you don't obey what I want you to do. If they're trying to stop you from reproducing, then you must reproduce. If they're trying to beat you down so you don't make money because of usury, you need to make money. If they don't want you to be brave, you need to be brave. You need to look at their exact playbook, and instead of tweeting at people, instead of accusing every single person who doesn't have an anon cartoon account of being a Jew, you need to do the absolute opposite of what they want you to do. And I believe that's how we win. That's how your movement and you become president of the United States. I think that's better for you and the movement as a whole. So when I made that tweet, that Groypers speak like a defeated people, that's because I'll say something, and I speak in absolutes. I absolutely do. And I think trolling is hilarious. And I make it clear that, you know, a white man, I say white man can't get a kid out of a woman unless he buys her 2 houses and 3 cars and a nanny. Ha, ha, ha. The Somalian can get 11 kids out of Fatima without a job. And I make a joke of it. All the replies is, well, now you're a Jew, you're a race mixing Jew, you work for the Jews. And I just think that that is counterproductive to the good fight and counterproductive to your movement. That's my actual view.
At the same time, though, you got to recognize that if you're going to rage bait, you can't really be mad when people get mad. You know what I mean?
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I mean, I literally, I'm real nigger Tay. I call myself a nigger all day long. I think it's funnier than it is. I love trolling. I'm all for it.